Okay, good evening, everybody. There's quite a number of you that I know, and there's some of you that I've known for a very long time, over 30 years. And so time flies living in Fukuoka. I do feel like one of the elders now. Today, I'm going to talk to you navigating the maze that is the Japanese pension system as a foreign. It's hard enough for the Japanese. It's even harder for us. And it is a maze. And what I'm going to talk to you is not really interesting. It's not so interesting. After Christy's talk, it might be a bit boring, but
it's money. We're interested.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like the old book Logan's Run. It's when, when you turn 30, you've got a carousel and nobody worries about it. But the closer you get, start worrying about it and questioning it. And yeah, and it is a maze. And the one thing I've got to tell you that pension in Japan is not a one-size-fits-all, except if you're in the kokumin nenkin, which I'll get into later on. But for most of us here, everybody is different, and the amount you're going to get is different. And because most of us didn't come here when we were 20 and started working when we were 22, we're not going to be like the Japanese who were in it for 40 years. So it's going to be different for us. But anyway, this is me when I was 34 years old. This is my daughter, Anne. And I got my first contracted job at Tunda. And it was a monthly salary. And up until then, I'd just been doing the bits and pieces. And I used to work on a TV job and all these other things. And anyway, I got offered this job where I only had to teach 2-3 days a week. And they said, right, salary. Okay, good. Associate professor, sounded good. And then they said to me, you have to join Shakai Hoken. And I said, no, thanks. At the time, you had to be enrolled for 25 years to collect. So I said, I'm not going to be in Japan for 25 years. All this money I'm going to pay. No, thanks. I'm not going to join. And they said, sorry, you have to join because this is the rules in Japan. You have to do it. And I said, no, I'm not going to. And they said, well, you've got no say in it. It's the law. And I felt really disappointed that I had to do this. All this dead money was going to go. Really disappointed. It's me now, 64 years old. There's 30 years later. And I'm really glad I joined the Japanese pension system back then. Because I'm thinking, if I didn't, what would I have now? And there are a lot of foreigners in Japan who, like me, were just like me, and managed to, their companies, when they said, I don't want to join Shakai, they said, good, great, you don't have to. And when it comes now, that Logan Run, as you get closer, how much, what am I going to live on? Will I going to have to work? Oh, man. Anyway, just before we go, I've got a Japanese proverb or an expression after. This is a Suzume no Namida. Suzume no Namida. The direct translation is the tears of a sparrow. Can you guess what this means? No. Tears of a sparrow means, how big are tears of a sparrow? Means it's a pittance. Oh. It's a pittance. So be prepared for the Japanese pension. Right. It's not going to be, that big, right, life of luxury, right? They've got an expression in Japan, nenkin seikatsu. It's as if, you just taking it easy. First of all, the Japanese pension system, it's good to be in it, but then again, it's probably not going to be as much as you expected. Okay. And today, actually, people here, when you're getting closer towards the receiving end of the pension, not really the ones that I need to talk to. It's the younger ones that are in their like 20s or 30s who are just starting. And, they have that fork in the road. Do you want to join it or don't you? No. Now, the one big difference now that was when I first joined, it used to be 25 years compulsory. That's gone down to 10 years now. So as long as you're in it for 10 years, you're going to get something when you turn 65. And am I going to be in Japan for 25 years? Probably everybody will say no. 10 years, well, maybe. All right. Right. So it's changing, and I think it's hard to leave. No. Some people are. But well, it depends on your situation. But especially if you have one spouse, your father or mother is here, and you've been working here for, you have your roots here, and your kids have your roots here too. It gets hard to leave, and the way in Australia that housing prices are, I don't think I could buy a house ever in Australia anymore. Right, so I talk to my friends, we're lifers. There's a lifer. So if you're going to be a lifer here, there are all these things you have to know. And anyway, the one word that keeps coming up is shakai hoken. Now, there's lots of translations for it, but at the union, we refer to it as shakai hoken because if you translate it into English, it loses meaning. But in effect, it's your kosei nenkin. I'll get into what kosei nenkin is, and your health insurance and your employment insurance as well. And think about it, 50% off. Because if you're a kosei nenkin, your company pays half. Right. So there's the three things there. Now, nenkin, Japanese get confused when you use the word pension because in Japanese they haven't used the French word pension, which means like a it's on a holiday home. But anyway, so there's two types here: kokumi nenkin, kosei nenkin. Right, so it's kokumi nenkin, kosei nenkin. We leave the terms in Japanese, just but even still, you can confuse them. Right. So, in effect, there's two types of pensions: the national pension and the employee's pension. Right. Christy, you're unemployed.
I am.
So you're not covered by. You're not paying the pension anymore.
I actually have to change it.
Yes, you have to. You have to apply to change it. But if your income's zero, you're probably might be exempt.
Nice.
Anyway, so there's two types of pension. You've got the national pension and the employee's pension. Now, the national pension is
That's the company.
it's a kokumi. Yes, it's a kokumi, right?
Okay.
So this is a fixed premium that you pay every month from the age of 20 and or the age of 22 maybe. And the basic number of years you pay into it is 40 years. Right. And the amount you receive is fixed. Right. I'll get the amounts will come up a bit later. And then the other one is the employee's pension. Now, what the employee's pension is the national pension, but on top of it, you have an extra amount. Now, that is in proportion to your income. So the payment you get is more than the basic kokumi. But how much more? It depends on your income, and it depends on how much you pay into it, and it's set on your income. Okay, so most of it, if you're working full-time, you'll be enrolled in the Corsi employees pension. Right? Actually, even if you're a foreigner, you're obliged to enroll in the Kokumin, the National Pension Insurance, as you are with the Kokumin Kenko Ken, the National Health Insurance. Now, everybody enrolls in the health insurance, well, not everybody. And if you don't pay, the shiaksha is going to come after you. And they're going to seize your money in your bank account or seize your salary. They haven't been doing that for the Kokumin. No. Because like the health insurance, if you're a gaijin, if you're not in the system, they don't know. Right? But most people join the health insurance system, and once you get in the system, you can't get out. But they haven't been so strict on the pension, the Kokumin. But recently they have. And now they know. Before they didn't know whether you're enrolled or not. Now they do. Do you know why?
My number.
My number, yes. My number. Everything comes to my number. And this is being recorded, so I'll talk about a friend of mine who's been here for a long time. He had an old bank account in the old days where you didn't have to use my number. Oh. And the bank's asking me for please tell me my number. I'm saying no. I think it's a good idea. All right. Okay. Now, you see here, this is a pay slip. I'm too embarrassed to show you how much I earn because of Suzume no Namida. But you'll see here that they always use these different terms. But this is what they call tanki. Tanki just means short term, but that's your health insurance portion. And then you have long-term care. And this is when you're over 40. You have to pay, and it's only about 2,000 or 3,000 a month. It's not really big. And then you have these two; they're just separated to the pension, and then there's employment insurance. This the company pays 50%. The employment insurance, that's if you lose your job, you can get that insurance money, but it's not 50-50. The employer pays a bit more, just a bit more. But yeah, and so. That's it. Look at your pay slip. Remember how much it is. Because the good thing about Shakai Hoken is if you retire or quit your job, you can remain in it for 2 more years. However, you don't get the 50% off. Right, so it'll be double what you're paying now. However, if you're over 65, then you don't have to pay the pension. So that pension portion comes out of it, which makes it much cheaper. Anyway, but everybody has their own calculation. And also remember when you quit your job, you've got no income, but if you go on to national health, that's based on your last year's income. So that's going to be much more. And also you're going to have your city taxes from last year, going to be much more. So when you retire, they're coming to get death and taxes. They're coming to get you.
Just for the following year when you haven't been earning, it goes down, or it can
So that'll be the next year.
the next year.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't continue like that.
But if you remain in the Shakai Hoken for 1 year and your income goes down, but the Shakai Hoken is not. It's based on your income, your current income, not your previous year's income. So if you remain on it for 1 more year, and that year, if you're not working and your income goes down, then the following year will be based on your lower income.
Do that.
Everybody's different. Do your sums.
But I can't understand if you're talking about health insurance.
Yes.
You're talking about health insurance now.
But health insurance is part of Shakai.
Right. But
Yeah.
if you're saying if you remain in this system with
Yeah.
a pension.
Yeah.
you
No,
pay
well,
that-
But if you're over 65,
Yes.
because if you're over 65, you don't have to pay into the pension.
Okay, if you're over 65, you're saying if you're over 65 and your job is finished, then you have to go back to the public health system,
Yes,
and then you're gonna have to pay premiums based on your previous.
yes.
But if you stay in your unit,
You're allowed, you can stay in it for 2 years after you quit,
okay, then
but you don't pay,
You won't.
your employer doesn't subsidize 50%, you have to pay 100%. But if you look at this figure, it'll be minus this figure. Okay, because you're over 65, you don't have to pay into the pension.
But if you're still working,
But you still don't have to pay into the pension. Right? But, good question, and this is another thing people aren't expecting. If you're over 65 and you're still working, you're not paying into the pension premiums, but your long-term, I can see Richard nodding, Robert nodding there. Your long-term health insurance skyrockets. And you've been paying like 2,000 and then it goes up to 20,000. Right. So that's another thing that and there's a calculation, and each city has a different calculation for it. It's on the Fukuoka City website, and it's based on what your income is. Okay, so
Is there an option to pay the pension for if you can work 5 years after turning 65, and would it be better?
not really, but there are things like IDECO. Have you heard of IDECO? No, IDECO is like a
American Joint.
no,
Okay.
but IDECO is just a way of putting money away in the bank or in one of these. It's like a pension plan that you can put in as much as you want, and you can't touch it until a certain year, but it's tax deductible. So if you're paying a lot of tax and you want to save money later, that's another thing I'd look into. Yeah,
is it also if you decide to start work before 65,
yeah.
you can pay in 5 years optional pension between 60 and 60 and 65. You can pay in an extra 5 years. It should be like Hokumen, thank you. To try to make up the years, because I was in the position when I first came, like I didn't join because it was 25, whatever.
Yeah.
But now, if I can make up an extra 5 years, it's going to be very useful.
Yeah, yes, there's the thing called Suino. You heard of that? It's like a paying extra. You can do that, but there's a calculation. There's a calculation that is it worth it, and you pay. I think it's about 40 money a year. Or it's 40 money a year, and you get an extra 3,000 yen a month till you die. So with all these pension calculations, if you know when you're going to die, you'll be able to make that calculation. And yeah. So even though you're paying into it, it is an insurance system, and it's like a national system. So I'm paying into it. I want to get that back. It's the whole country sort of, helping us, and that's why they have a disability scheme as well, and also bereaved families can also get it. Actually, one of my very good friends, an Australian, 12 years ago, he started work at this Senmon Gakko, and he's only working 2 or 3 days a week. And they said, oh, they offered me to join Shakai Hoken. I said, do it. Do it. I think this might have been when it was 25 years. So I said, do it. Another reason why to do it, because if you're in Shakai Hoken, you have like a trust when you're going for a loan, a housing loan. Are you in Shakai Hoken? Yes. If you're going for a visa, right, you're in Shakai Hoken? Yes. It's just one of these social attributes. If you're a gaijin that's not in it, and there are a lot of people that, still on their, global health insurance or whatever, because they don't want to pay into it. And, well, it's hard to say no, but you'll find that all those people, when they get really sick and they find out that their insurance doesn't cover it, they go running to join the Kokumin Kenko again, the Japanese system. And so it's more of a burden on Japan. Anyway, this is just maybe for the recording, but they do have information in English on the websites. And if you go to this is the General Union CC hotline. They've got all this information up there as well. Actually, I stole the PowerPoints from the union. They have a YouTube video on this. So anyway, also linking. Yes, I know there's lots of figures here, but the criteria for being eligible to get the Shakai Hoken pension, it changes. It's been changing for a few years, and depending on the size of the company, and companies, it's been a game of whack-a-mole. That the government has changed. For example, there's a big dispatch company, the biggest dispatch company for ALTs. They said, if you have more than 500 employees, then you have to give them all Shakai Hoken. So what did they do? They divided the company into all these divisions with 499 employees. And more recently, it's gone down to 20 hours, or 30 and 20 hours, depending on the size of the company. And the size of the company is if you have 51 employees, but then again, those 51 includes the number of people who are working 3/4 of a regular worker. So it's like, if it's a 40-hour week, they have to be working a 30-hour week. Anyway, I'll talk to you a bit more about that. But you get these contracts of 29.5 hours per week. And up until a few years ago, all the ALTs in Fukuoka were all on 29.5 hour week contracts. And that means that the company is not obliged to enroll them all in Shakai Hoken, so they don't get all these benefits. It's cheaper for the company, but it's also cheaper for the Board of Education to enroll, not having to enroll. It becomes cheaper for them to get their ALTs. So for years and years and years, up until 4 years ago, Fukuoka City, all the ALTs on 29.5 hours. And another thing about it, the good thing about it is it's to be enrolled in the pension system, especially if you have a spouse who is a stay-at-home mum or is working. And you've heard of that Kakusan mum or the 103 mum rule, because if your wife earns less than 103 mum a year, and you're in Shakai Hoken, she's covered by yours. For her national pension is covered, so she doesn't have to pay. And that's helped me a lot. And that's really good, because it's not just me, it's also my wife's national pension, the Kokumin, not the Kousei Ninkin. So how much is it? Right, the Kousei Ninkin is well, actually it's 18.3%, but the company pays half, so it's 9.15%. But the Kokumin Ninkin, it's fixed rate. But this is last year, it's just gone up. It's 17,510 now. But also the amount you get has gone up, so it's like it's going up with the consumer price index a bit, but it's still not much. I mentioned before, it's called Category 3 insured person. And some of the benefits are the same between the Kokumin and the Kousei Ninkin, right? So you get it at 65. You can start at 60, but it's at a lower rate. And, or you can delay receiving it, and you get, and every year you delay, you get, it's a 8.2% that extra. But recently, in my rugby club, everybody's over 60. My team over 60 in the 70s, and I've asked them all, did you delay and to get the extra? Nobody's done. They all get it when they're 65. No. The only reason too, because you're allowed to work while you're getting your pension, to subsidise pension, up to about, I think it's 48 a month, depending how old you are, over 60 or over 65. But you can work, you can still work and get your pension. But if you're earning more than 50 a month, then your pension will decrease. No.
You're only more than 1 month, can you tell me where you
No?
work?
But anyway, but the two are very different. Yeah?
Where everybody wants to, how much a month can you?
Hang on, it's coming. It's coming, but it's coming. Just a minute. Okay, but so I told you about Suzume and Namida. Now, I sort of how can I equate? How can I make it easy to what the kokumin and the Kosei Ninkin the difference, right? So kokumin Ninkin is 2 onigiri. That's your one. That's what you get to eat a day. Kosei Ninkin, it's your 2 onigiri and you got a bit. Yes. You know, you get a bit more. You know, it's not. It's not nomi hodai tabi hodai. You know, it's just enough to get through. And recently on Japanese television, they had this Ninkin video, TV show, and they went to meet all these famous people who are now over 65 and they're receiving the pension. And there's all these really famous people, and they're all complaining, I only get this much, and or I wish I would have paid more into it, or I was getting on a contract and it wasn't a salaried work, so I wish it was a salary because then I would have got more. All these people, it happens in Japan because people just don't read up or know about it. It just comes automatically, right? So yeah, and actually this is from 2 years ago, and this is the average pension that Japanese are receiving. So if they're on a national pension, age between 60 and 64, this is how much they're getting. So they're getting it at the reduced rate. But from 65, you know, the maximum amount, it'll come out in a minute, but the kokumin Ninkin, it's a fixed rate, and it's, I think it's 83 months. The full rate. So the full rate, this has gone up again. It's 831,700. If you pay that 17,000 a month for 40 years, and you get that until you die. So that's a national pension. Now, the question is, could I live on that? You know, the Japanese government, they issued a report that for the average Japanese, they need Yisen month. That's 20 million yen in savings from the age of 65 to survive. No, that's not going to make that much. No. But you see here with the employee's pension, this is of course in Ninkin. They're getting much more, right? And this is the maximum you can get from the kokumin. But of course in Ninkin, this is the maximum you can get. Of course, it's pro rata to your income. So this would be someone on a very high income, but it goes up the higher income, and your employer's paying half of it. So this is the one much better to be on. Right now, here we go. How much will I get? This is. I had to change these figures because it's just changed in April last year. Right. So if you pay into it for 40 years, that's 480 months. Right, divided by 480, so you'll get the full amount, right? But it goes down I haven't sort of adjusted the calculations here, but so if you're in it for 20 years, you're going to get half of this. And it's the same here, but it's a bit of a, it's a complex calculation. It depends how much you've been earning on an average, and everyone is different. So everyone's, but you're all different, but there is one way to find out. And that's, anyway, this is, if you paid into the Kokumin Nenkin for 40 years, you get 2 on each. If it's 20 years, you only get 1. So think of it that way. There's a visual. So how much will I get? Right, so we talked about the Kokumin Nenkin, but the way to find out is what's called the Nenkin Teikibi. Your what's that? Your Nenkin Express delivery, and it will have how many months you've been enrolled and which system, whether it's the national or the employees. Now, a lot of Japanese change work. You'll change jobs, and I think if you're a seafarer, if you're working on a ship, they've got a different system. There's a few systems, but it's usually just the national or the coursing need. I often get asked to translate these, and there's even people changing jobs all the time. And the number of months is important, and it will give you a figure of an estimate on how much you will receive. Now, you usually get this in your birthday month, but depending on how old you are, they'll send it to you. But when you get over 60, they send it to you every year. So I've got mine, and I can see about how much I'm going to get. It's just a minimum. Also, it'll have I think the last year. You see here, this will be how much salary, and this will be like your bonus, because your bonus is included, because before they didn't take the shako account out of your bonus, but about 20 years ago, they started doing it. I often hear people say, oh, is the Japanese pension system, are they going to have enough money to pay it when that's a question. That's a question I was asking 30 years ago. Can I guarantee you'll get paid? No. But you're seeing that they're offering them these incentives for people to get your pension later. And what could happen is, I don't think cutting the amount is politically not correct, but what they might do is push back the age that you can get it. Things like that might happen. So I'm glad I've only got a year to wait. So there's a bit more certainty, but it's a national thing. It's something for the whole country. So it's not just you, it's everybody. So yes, if you're worried about it, yes, but the whole country is worried about it. And in Australia, we have, of course, superannuation. It's like America 401k, so you can actually see how much you have. And the stock market goes down. I can remember my brother saying, oh, I don't want to look at the stock market. I don't want to look at the stock market because this is going to be going down. But in Japan, it's more social. It's social insurance. So it's everybody. They're all in the same ship. But anyway, I recommend you look. You're probably getting it. You might not know what it is, but I'd recommend you look through it because this is going to be your future. Also, there's a disability pension. And this is another, in the General Union, the General Secretary, he worked at an Eikawa, and he fought to get into Shakai Hoken. And about 2 years after it, he had it was a congenital disease he didn't know, and he became paraplegic in a wheelchair. But because he was in the Shakai Hoken, he got enough money to refurbish his house. He lives on the first floor with the wheelchair access, and gets a wheelchair and goes to work in Osaka every day. And he says, still, if he didn't have that, no, really, no. There are the amount you can get is a bit more. This is with the Kokumin Nenkin, but the Kosei Nenkin, if you're in either, your spouse can get an amount, and the more children you have, the more disability pension you can get. So in another way, if you're a parent and you have kids, the responsible thing is to have the Japanese pension or insurance or something first, but the Japanese pension. And if you've got the two, it's the forced saving thing, which is the better one. Yeah. And another one, if you die, but my friend, 50-year-old friend, he died. He's actually going to go back to Australia. And so he was finishing up work, and he was having all these sayonara parties. Take it easy. Because he went all this sayonara, he was as fit as me. And on the 27th of March last year, killed over a heart attack and died, leaving 2 high school kids. I recommended he join Fukuoka. He was going to finish work on March the 31st. He'd already finished work, but he was still employed. So he's in Fukuoka. His family get the bereaved families allowance. And children under 18. And the other thing, parents and grandparents can get it too. There are a lot more benefits being the course eating thing. Yeah. And now this is also important for gauging. It's the sayonara Japan, Dakai Ichijiki. So you can leave the pension system and you can get an amount. It's not as much as you paid in, will you be getting some back? And there are calculations for how many months, but so if you paid in for 6 months, you get 5 months back. It used to be only 3 years, but it's gone up to 5 years now. So in 5 years, you can get 50 months back. So in the old days, it used to be only 3. The reason this started was for jets. Jets complained that they had to pay into the pension system, but they couldn't get it. So they made this system where they could get. The company pays 50%. You can't get the money that the company paid, but you can get the money you paid back. And so for foreigners now, instead it was 3 years and 25 years, now it's 5 years or 10 years. So if you're between that, you lose out. It's only 5 years you're losing out instead of 22 years. So so it is much better. And there are calculations that you can go into, and I won't go into it now. But if you go to the website, you can still find out. And so and as you mentioned about possible to work, depending how old you are, if you're under 60 and you're on a pension, it's 28 months. But if you're over 60, if you're over 60 to 64, the total of your pension and salary, it can go up to 47 months, and your pension doesn't decrease. And when you hit 65, your pension and your salary 48 months. As long as it doesn't go over that, then it won't decrease. So I'm looking forward to, after I retire, I'm going to get my salary, and my declared income will not exceed 48 months. And even though I'm going to retire, I still intend to work, but maybe I won't have to go to faculty meetings and all those committee meetings and all those fun stuff I might say goodbye to. But I still haven't decided, because there's the option to keep working, and each to his own. I intend to keep doing all my part-time jobs because I enjoy them, and maybe do some more. I also do a lot of translations and other people. Actually, I met a person today. This is a bit off topic. He's in Japan on a digital nomad visa. Now we got a digital nomad visa. I said, "There's no such thing." No, but it's a special activities visa, and it's a sub section of it. Yeah. So even though you're on the pension, you still work, but there's a lot of Japanese who don't have anything because they didn't enjoy anything. And one of my friends in the union, he turned 65. He started working at one of these garden companies, you know, when they're just sort of just standing around in their guard uniform. And there's people there 70, 72, 73, and they're still working because they don't have any pension. So they still have to work. There's a lot of people in Japanese that don't have pension, and they just victim of circumstance or just didn't have that employment. So you know, really with the pension, knowledge is power. Is it enough? Suzume no Namida, right? Also, you know, the Japanese population is decreasing. The number of elderly is going to increase. You know, I think who's going to build the old people's home, the aged care facility for old gaijin in Fukuoka? No, they're going to need that in the future. I'd recommend the General Union has they have a hotline and information on pensions, and the reason why the union is very involved with pensions because there's been a lot of universities even that have not enrolled their foreign teachers as they should have, and you can't retroactively enroll in Shakaiken for more than 2 years. But because they didn't follow their obligation to enroll them, they have suffered loss. So you can take them to court and sue them for the loss, and that's what we've done a few times, and we win. But a lot of Japanese companies, this is how they save money. And all these small companies are complaining about having to pay the 50%. You know, we're going broke. And a lot of companies are in arrears paying. That doesn't affect the insured persons, but it is a difficult issue. And, you know, with the aging population, it's going to be more difficult. So, you know, I can't guarantee you're going to get what you do, but keep an eye on the politics, keep an eye on the information that was coming out. And a lot of it's in Japanese. There's not much at all for foreigners. The Japanese government put some information out, but it was like when Christy showed the book from 2019, you know, everything's old, and it's best to keep up with the latest information on it. And just in finally, I never thought, when I came to Japan in 1986, I thought it was going to be here for 1 year. It's 39 years later now. But I've enjoyed my time. I've raised all my kids. Now I'm enjoying helping to raise my 4 grandkids. It's fun. So I have to have more freedom.
Can I add, so I am preparing to leave Japan. I have paid into pension more than 10 years. And so I've been to the pension office asking, how can I get my pension? And the Japanese government or the pension plan will pay me directly to my Canadian bank account, you know, when the time comes. But here, my husband is over 65. He got his green envelope, you know, when he turned 65, and was able to, you know, they notified him saying, hey, it's time for you to start your pension. And I said, so when I go to Canada, do I leave my address somewhere and you're going to send me the green envelope? And they're like, no, you have to contact us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to put it in your little calendar. If you your own country, it's on me to get it started.
Yeah, it's no sort of not much special attention for gaijin.
No.
Yeah, and the Japanese, if you've got a special dispensation, you have to apply. And when my son went to Australia to study, university students have an exemption. But because he wasn't in a Japanese university, he was an Australian university, he wasn't classed as a university student. He had to claim an exemption as a low-income earner. But it's best that you go there and you put those in exemptions, and it ends up adding on to the number of years. Also, if you're borderline on the 10 years, there are some countries that have a bilateral agreement with Japan on the pension. And if you paid in, this is with Australia, if you paid into super for a couple of years, you don't get the money, but they will tack those 2 years on. And there's another thing called karakikan. That's an empty period. So it's the number of years that you were an adult living outside Japan. That tacks on to the number of years going up to the 10, but doesn't add any to the actual money that you paid. So if you're borderline on the 10 years, that makes a difference. Yeah. Okay, ladies first. Just go to YouTube. YouTube General Union. There are not many videos on the General Union YouTube website. That's all you want to know about pensions. Yes.
For Americans,
Yeah.
there is a US-Japan total relation so that you could get Social Security. As I understand, we had a friend who worked in the US and he said you could actually get credits for working in Japan and paying into the pension there. And you could decide to take your money from the US Social Security or Japan, or actually, I think he said you could like do half and half, but I'm not sure on that, but I don't know if that an agreement with any other countries or not.
Bilateral agreements are unique to each country. So my advice is to find out what your country is.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd second finding out what your country is.
Yeah.
Sorry, what the situation in your country is, because a lot of them just say you don't have to pay into both countries. But UK just had a huge deadline where like you could pay back to something like 2016 and make a load of back payments to qualify for the UK pension. And even if you didn't do that, you could probably pay from now, so you'll get a portion of the UK pension. And the UK pension from the Japanese pension, livable.
Yeah.
It's you get maybe some.
It's just that all this information is really good, but you need to learn this when you're like 30.
Chris, can I say something? So I'm 65 and I just started to go through this process. And I found out some information that I did not know. And what I always wondered is, do I get Kousei Nenkin or do I get Kokumin Nenkin or do I get both?
Right.
And the answer is
yes,
you get both.
You get both, right? But they call it Kokumin Nenkin, but the actual term is Kiso Nenkin, the basic, right? So the basic one, and then on top of that, you've got your Kousei Nenkin.
Right.
So that's what it actually is. It's the foundation, the basic one, and this is the two onigiri. And this is,
but also the Kousei Nenkin one is from my school, my university.
Yeah.
And the Kokumin Nenkin is from the public, the government. And they don't talk to each other. So I had to go to actually the Nenkin office and request to get my Kokumin Nenkin. And they were not going to give it to me unless I requested it. And the Kousei Nenkin is through the university. So they were very helpful. Yeah. But I said to them, how about my Kokumin Nenkin? They said, oh, we don't know about that. So you have, I had to. This is a true story. I had to go to the Kokumin Nenkin office and apply, and I got it. Otherwise, I would not have got it. So this is something I did not know. But
you're in the Shigaku Kyosai.
Yes.
Did you go to they have information sessions every year.
Right.
For people who are about to retire. I recommend going to it. I went to one, and but then again, I haven't gone through the process, so that's good information for me.
Right.
Right.
But it's substantial. It's a lot more. So then I thought I could not live only on this amount.
No, it's in your Teiki bin.
Right.
They're separate. They show which amount that your Kiso Nenkin and your Kousei Nenkin.
Right.
Those figures are there. Also, you get it once a year, but you can register online and you can check it online as well. There's an online.
I think it might be the same topic, but I'm just wondering what happens if you switch, like someone's been working for 15 years on Kokumin and then they switch and they get.
Oh, it happens all the time.
And then
it's all on the Nenkin Teiki, and it'll show the calculations on it. I don't know how many of you remember that about 20 years ago, there was all this trouble about pension, because all these people had paid and they weren't getting it, and they lost all the documents. And what happened is when they went from analog, they got people to input in computers. There were all these mistakes, and then all these people found out, and then they found out that well, I think it was Karnanauta, the Prime Minister, he hadn't paid into. And then, you know, the opposition started complaining. And then there was 3 of the opposition that there were all these people that didn't. And the big one was that with this linking, I don't know if you remember our TV show, Sean and me, Esaki Makiko. There's this really famous actress on this, and she was really famous in this TV drama. She's this supermodel type. And she was on the ads for the Kokumi Ninkin. And she was up there saying, you know, if you don't join in Ninkin, you'll be sorry in the future. Yeah. And she's been this strict like worker. And she's on this national, the government's national advertising campaign. She wasn't enrolled. They found out later she wasn't enrolled in it. You know, it became all this. There was three of the, maybe Aso Taro was one of them. You know, the richest politician in Japan. There was 3 of them. They called them Dango San Kyodai.
Yeah. The office staff entered one of the foreign teachers' name like using different katakana.
Yeah.
So basically he got this message saying he hadn't been paying his tax, and he's like, you know, I have my pay slip.
Yeah.
The office staff put his name in twice, but just slightly different.
That's something you'll find, you know, with your names in katakana in your health insurance card, but in your Jumi, it's in Romaji. When I got a housing loan, I had to get the it's called income shomen, your income certificate, and the name's in Romaji there. And then the bank told me I had to change all my bank accounts from katakana to Romaji to match my income shomen. And there's sometimes with my Flynn Christopher John, there's not enough spaces for my katakana name. Now you'll find these problems. So you've got to get on top of them. So the earlier you can find out what these problems are. And not every problem has surfaced. I'm sure there'll be new ones coming very soon.
I have a question for Chrissy. So you have to apply yourself. Does the embassy in Canada, do they provide any assistance with that, or you have to do it directly to Japan?
Yeah, I'll just call them up and say, hey, I want to. So the Kokumi lady told me was that there was a division, probably in Tokyo, that handles overseas insured people. So yeah, I think that I'll kind of be there. And I was worried because, you know, I gave my mom's phone number because that's just for the time being, that's where we're landing in. And she's like, okay, if you have any questions, we'll call. I'm like, but my mom doesn't speak Japanese, you know. So, but that's when she said there was a division for overseas. Yeah.
Anyway, I think I'll finish up now. But you know, I'm sure you might have more questions, but it's just something to start and get the ball running. And as I say, everybody's different. Everybody's amounts are going to be different. So the more information you can get, the better. And I learned something new tonight too.
Yeah, I'm worried about
that.
Because I'm not going to be in the oh, we don't make call them.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.